71. On the 3rd of September 1978, a grim discovery was made deep in a forest belt about 18 kilometres from the highway near Gorodovikovsk. The remains belonged to a Caucasian man believed to be between 60 and 69 years old, standing roughly 162 to 163 centimetres tall. Investigators noted he was missing several teeth. At the time of discovery, he was dressed in black trousers, a grey jacket, a dark shirt and underwear. Strangely, he had no shoes. The body was in a severe state of decomposition and partially charred. Burn marks were also visible on his head, neck and chest, and grass surrounding his head was also scorched. Even more disturbing, his torso and legs had been bound tightly with a tarpaulin belt, while his hands were tied behind his back with rope. A medical examiner later confirmed blunt force trauma to the left side of his skull, but because of the extent of decomposition and burning, other injuries could not be determined. His official cause of death remained undetermined, yet the condition of the body left no doubt. Authorities ruled the case as a murder. Number 70. On the 9th of April 1991, the quiet village of Izborsk was shaken by a chilling discovery. The body of a man was pulled from the river. He was estimated to be between 35 and 40 years old, standing an imposing 188 centimetres tall, with a shoe size of 45. His hair showed patches of balding, and he wore a simple black long-sleeve shirt. But what investigators uncovered next revealed this was no accident. His hands had been bound tightly behind his back with a seatbelt. His legs were tied with a tow rope. The evidence left little doubt. This man's life had been deliberately taken. His death was ruled as a murder. Number 69. On the 18th of January 1994, in a quiet village of Yuzhny, investigators made a haunting discovery. Buried beneath the steep terrain were the skeletal remains of a man. He was believed to be between 45 and 50 years old, standing around 160 centimetres tall. His features included short brown hair and a thick grey beard and moustache. What stood out most were his tattoos. A rising sun inked into his right hand, with additional tattoos marking his left forearm and the back of his left hand. When uncovered, he was dressed in multiple layers. Blue tracksuit trousers worn over khaki pants, a dark blue sweater, a blue and brown shirt, a blue vest, grey and blue socks, brown socks, black boots and a black winter hat. Each detail painted the picture of a man whose story remains hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered. Number 68. On the 12th of September 1995, a shocking discovery was made in Kostroma. At the bottom of a manhole in the courtyard of school number 21, investigators uncovered the skeletal remains of a man. He was estimated to be between 35 and 45 years old, standing between 175 and 190 centimetres tall. His features included dark brown hair, and records later confirmed his blood type as AB. When found, he was dressed simply in a grey t-shirt and grey striped socks, but the circumstances surrounding his body suggested something far darker. Authorities believe this man had been murdered. Number 67. On the 23rd of October 1995, a grim discovery was made in the steppe between two villages. The charred remains of a man were uncovered. He was believed to be between 53 and 58 years old, Caucasian, around 175 centimetres tall, with an average build. His features included short red hair and striking grey-blue eyes. When found, he was wearing a yellow t-shirt, grey trousers and a pair of black shoes, but investigators also recovered a few strange items: a belt buckle, a piece of steel wire and the burnt remnants of a Bulgarian newspaper. The scene suggested far more than an accident. This man's final moments remain shrouded in mystery. Number 66. On the 7th of June 1997, a gruesome discovery was made in Ryazan. Inside the drainage basin of a waste landfill, investigators uncovered the dismembered remains of a man. Only his torso, with both arms still attached, had been recovered. He was dressed in a black t-shirt and dark brown leather sheepskin coat, an item traced back to Yugoslavia. The chilling condition of his remains left little doubt. This man had not died by accident. Authorities believed he was murdered. Number 65. On the 11th of January 1998, a chilling discovery was made in a small village of Semenovo. The decomposed body of a man was found. He was Caucasian, between 30 and 42 years old, about 180 centimetres tall and strongly built. His hair was light brown, streaked with grey details that could once have made him easily recognisable. At the time of his discovery, he was wearing a brown leather jacket, a blue striped vest, black jeans, lilac underwear and black socks. But it was the condition of his body that revealed the true horror. This man had been shot multiple times. His death was no accident, it was murder. Who was this man? Why was he targeted? And most importantly, why was his body left to decompose in the open? Number 64. On the 30th of September 1999, a shocking discovery was made in a quarry behind a pulp and paper processing plant. The body of a man was found. He was believed to be between 45 and 60 years old, standing at 168 centimetres tall, with light brown hair. Investigators noted he was missing a tooth on the left side of his lower jaw, an identifying feature that could be the key to uncovering who he was. At the time of his discovery, he was dressed in a camouflage t-shirt and a pair of grey and black shorts. But the bigger question remains, who was he? How did he end up lifeless in the quarry? And was his death a tragic accident or something much darker? Number 63. On the 1st of August 2000, a grim discovery was made just off the roadside in Kostroma Oblast. Buried beneath a sand pile lay the body of a man. He was Caucasian, estimated to be between 30 and 40 years old, standing at 179 centimetres tall. One identifying detail stood out. He was missing a first incisor on the right side of his upper jaw. At the time of his discovery, he was dressed in a grey-blue shirt with metal buttons and a pair of dark green underpants. But investigators quickly realised this was no ordinary death. The evidence pointed to one conclusion. This man had been murdered. Who was he? Why was he left hidden beneath the sand? And what dark story led him to this fate? Number 62. On the 13th of February 2001, a man was discovered murdered in a remote area about 1.5 kilometres north of a highway in Gorodovikovsk district. He was believed to be Caucasian, between 50 and 65 years old, and stood around 158 centimetres tall. When found, he was wearing a single black right shoe with the word Canada inscribed on the sole. Number 61. On the 14th of June 2001, the body of a man was discovered in Lake Korobocha. He was believed to be Caucasian, between 35 and 45 years old, and showed multiple fractures across his body. His remains had been wrapped in plastic, bound tightly with metal wire, and weighed down using a car battery, a car charger, and 2 5-kilogram weights. Number 60. On the 19th of August 2001, a chilling discovery was made in the quiet city of Kostroma. At the corner of Young Pioneers and Gorky Street, the body of a man was found lifeless. He appeared to be between 40 and 45 years old, around 184 centimetres tall, of irregular build with reddish hair. Investigators noted a chipped front tooth on his upper jaw and several distinct tattoos on his right forearm, both knees, and on each foot. The man was dressed in a dark grey knitted t-shirt, grey trousers and grey underwear. He wore black cloth trainers, a grey sock on his left foot, and curiously, a lilac sock on his right. But the most haunting detail? Signs at the scene suggested this man had been murdered. Who was he, and what really happened on that August morning in Kostroma? Number 59. On the 30th of August 2002, a grim discovery was made on the banks of the Kostroma River. Roughly 300 metres downstream from the local water intake station, a man's body was found lying in the mud. He was Caucasian, between 45 and 60 years old, standing at 163 centimetres tall, with grey hair. Investigators noted that his teeth bore the marks of a chronic smoker, a detail that would later help paint a clear picture of who he might have been. On his person they found a watch engraved with Arabic numerals fastened to a brown leatherette strap. There were no other possessions and no signs of life. But one thing was certain, the scene pointed to murder. Number 58. On the 28th of July 2004, deep in the forest outside Manturovo, a grim discovery was made. Among the trees, investigators uncovered a man's skeletal remains. What little was left revealed that he had light brown and grey hair, and several teeth were missing. He was found dressed in a black leatherette vest, a dark grey jacket, and dark grey trousers. On his feet, a dark blue sock on his left, and grey and black rubber boots. Beside him lay a green comb and a packet of tablets labelled with a Latin inscription. Small details, but potentially vital clues. But the most chilling discovery? The man's hands were tied to a tree behind his back. It was clear this was no accident. Authorities believed this man had been murdered. Number 57. On the 11th of April 2005, just outside the quiet village of Redkino, a disturbing discovery was made near a lonely lake about 1.5 kilometres from town. The remains of a man were found, his age estimated to be between 30 and 50 years old and standing around 178 centimetres tall. He was dressed in a yellow and green camouflage jacket, a blue-green shirt with white and blue stripes, and a pair of blue trousers. On his feet were black trainers, black and grey socks, and around his waist a black leather belt. Though the elements had simply taken their toll, one thing was certain. This was not a man who simply got lost. Number 56. On the 23rd of July 2005, along the Solonitsa River, a horrifying scene emerged. Just 50 metres from a bridge, a passerby made a grim discovery. A man's naked skeletal remains submerged in a shallow pool of water. The victim was believed to be between 30 and 40 years old. Forensic examination revealed he was missing several teeth and had suffered a fractured rib. But what truly shocked investigators was what they found next. A heavy metal roller, the kind used on tractors, had been tied to his body, deliberately anchoring him to the riverbed. There was no doubt about it, this was murder. Number 55. On the 28th of April 2007, in the city of Krasnoyarsk, a passerby was walking along a street when something unusual caught his eye. Near a house, he stopped by an old concrete well and decided to take a look inside. What he saw would haunt him forever. Inside the well, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a human skull. Police were called immediately. When they arrived, they retrieved the skull and began their investigation. Experts estimated the victim was Caucasian, between 30 and 35 years old. They determined he had been beaten and stabbed and that his head had been severed from his body. Clear signs of murder. Despite their efforts, investigators were unable to identify who the victim was. Local missing persons records were checked, but there were no matches, and eventually the case went cold. Then, 16 years later on the 24th of November 2023, the Russian Investigative Committee decided to reopen the case. Forensic experts created a facial reconstruction from the skull, hoping someone might recognise the man and finally give him a name. Just 2 months later, on the 26th of January 2024, a major breakthrough came. Police identified the killer. He was a 39-year-old man already serving a 19-year prison sentence for the brutal murder of his sister and her husband back in 2009. When questioned, the man confessed. He said he had met the victim by chance on the street. They went to a nearby bar for drinks, but the night took a dark turn. An argument broke out and it quickly turned violent. He admitted to beating the man severely and then stabbing him in the neck. Afterwards, he dragged the body into some bushes, decapitated him and threw the head down the well. Using a motorcycle, he then transported the body to a forest outside the city, where he burnt it and buried what was left. When investigators followed him to the site, they uncovered skeletal remains that matched his confession in chilling detail. But even now, when asked who the victim was, the killer simply said, "I don't remember." As of today, Russian authorities are still trying to identify the victim, and his murder case remains under review by the prosecutor's office. Number 54. On the 1st of June 2007, on the right bank of the Shelon River, near the quiet town of Panovo, a grim discovery was made. A man's lifeless body was found lying close to the water's edge. He was believed to be between 30 and 50 years old. Forensic examiners noted multiple metal crowns in his mouth and a long surgical scar across his abdomen, suggesting he had undergone a major operation at some point in his life. He was dressed in a padded jacket, a grey sweater, a blue shirt and blue trousers secured with a brown belt. Underneath, he wore light blue underpants and knitted socks. Simple, everyday clothing for a man who likely never expected his final day was near. But as investigators studied the scene, it quickly became clear this was no accident. The evidence pointed unmistakably to murder. Number 53. On the 17th of July 2007, deep within the forest near the small village of Yuzhny, a shocking discovery was made. Buried inside a shallow hole in the ground, searchers uncovered a man's skeletal remains. Investigators determined the victim was Caucasian, between 50 and 60 years old, standing around 183 centimetres tall, with a strong, well-built frame and dark brown hair. From his features, Russian authorities believed he may have been of Central European origin. He was found wearing a black sweater, a thick cotton shirt, a white t-shirt, a jersey, shoes, and grey and black socks, clothing that suggested he may have died during the colder months. But the most chilling detail wasn't what he wore, it was how he was found. Buried and left to decay in a forest grave, it was clear this man had been murdered. Number 52. On the 12th of April 2008, along the right bank of the Izhora River, police made a gruesome discovery. The body of a man was found wrapped in plastic bags and a blanket, the entire bundle tied together with tape and a car cable. The victim was believed to be Caucasian, between 50 and 70 years old, and about 166 centimetres tall. He was dressed in black trousers and a yellow t-shirt. Given the disturbing circumstances, investigators quickly ruled his death as a murder, though a specific cause of death could not be determined. Examinations revealed that the man had been dead for around 2 months before he was found. He was missing several teeth, likely lost before death, and analysis suggested he was of Slavic origin. But what made this case even more unsettling was what investigators discovered next. Although he was not biologically related two other known victims, police believe this man was killed by the same individual responsible for the deaths of the married couple and their child, whose bodies were also found in the Izhora River. Authorities suspect that all four victims may have been foreigners to Russia, and that whoever killed them was still out there. Number 51. On the 27th of August 2008, a grim discovery was made along the banks of the Izhora River. Wrapped tightly in cloth bags and blankets, bound together with duct tape and rope, lay the body of a man. Beside him, in the exact same manner, was the body of a woman. Both had suffered multiple stab wounds, both had been murdered. The man was described as Caucasian, between 45 and 55 years old, standing around 165 to 170 centimetres tall. Medical examination revealed that he had previously undergone surgery as part of his stomach had been removed. He was found dressed in a black sweater, dark blue trousers, dark grey trousers, a red t-shirt, dark blue shorts and dark grey socks, a strange combination that raised even more questions. Police immediately began searching for witnesses or evidence, but nothing surfaced. Their DNA was entered into the national database, yet no matches were ever found. An autopsy later suggested a heartbreaking detail. The two victims were likely parents, but with no identities and no labels, the case soon went cold. Years later, on the 9th of October 2021, the mystery deepened. Skeletal remains of a child were discovered in the same river. DNA testing confirmed what investigators feared. The child was biologically related to both of the 2008 victims. It was likely their son or daughter. A family brutally murdered and discarded in the waters of the Izhora River. Despite an exhaustive review of missing couples with children across Russia since 2007, no matches were found. Authorities began to suspect the family may have lived on the margins of society or may have been foreigners. Before long, whispers began spreading of a possible serial killer, one the media dubbed the Izhora maniac. Investigators later connected this family's deaths to another unsolved murder, that of a man found just months earlier in April 2008 in the same river. Number 50. On the 8th of September 2008, within the grounds of the Kurchatov Institute in Moscow, a discovery was made that would shock investigators. Hidden on the property, skeletal remains were found belonging to a young man. He was believed to be Caucasian, between 20 and 30 years old, standing around 168 to 172 centimetres tall, with dark brown hair and a trace of reddish facial stubble. When discovered, he was wearing a white and blue vest, a dark shirt and dark jeans. Simple work clothing, nothing out of the ordinary. But what was extraordinary was how he had died. His skull was wrapped in a plastic bag and an electric wire had been tightly wound around his neck. Forensic examination confirmed the cause of death was strangulation. Investigators believe the man may have come from another region of Russia, possibly hired to perform repair or renovation work at the institute. But whoever he was and whoever killed him remains a mystery. Number 49. On the 13th of October 2009, in the quiet settlement of Manturovo, police made a grim discovery. The body of a man was found brutally beaten to death. Investigators quickly connected the victim to someone known only as Renat. Renat was known locally as an artist and graphic designer. He had moved to the area back in 1982, working out of a small garage studio, taking on commissions and design work for anyone willing to pay. To prove his identity to clients, he would often present his passport. Everything seemed legitimate. But when police began searching for his next of kin, the story took a strange turn. The passport Renat had been using wasn't his at all. It belonged to another man who was alive and well. Whoever Renat really was remains a mystery to this day. Further investigation revealed that a group of drunken youths had been responsible for the killing. They were arrested and charged, but the true identity of the man they murdered, the one calling himself Renat, has never been uncovered. Number 48. On the 27th of September 2010, along the banks of the Shenaya Kavitva River, a lone body was discovered lying near the water's edge. The victim was a Caucasian man, believed to be between 50 and 55 years old, standing about 176 centimetres tall. He had grey hair, grey eyes, and a neatly kept moustache to match. Investigators noted a distinct scar across his stomach and several metal crowns in his teeth, small but crucial details that might one day help identify him. The man was found dressed in a blue jacket, a dark blue t-shirt and grey swimming shorts, an odd combination for someone found dead by the river. Who was he, and what happened to him on the banks of the river that day?